Japan was a little bit behind.
A decade, maybe.
Yeah, maybe in some instances. But yeah, at least, easily 3 to 5 years behind. Maybe even some instances more.
Yeah.
A little bit of urgency in terms of, obviously, I am Japanese. I did grow up in Japan. There's going to be some challenges that Japan will face. But it was always a goal of mine to potentially create Plug and Play in Japan because I just saw the opportunity gap that was here. Is that Japan, very early in their startup ecosystem journey, but had the potential to be one of the largest in the world, be the missing piece to the puzzle here in Japan, then that was kind of an interesting opportunity to me. I would create this, I would launch this from California, and then maybe hire someone in Japan to become the CEO of Plug and Play Japan. I had this kind of urge to lead it on my own. And so I went back to the CEO, was kind of like, hey, so I think I want to move to Japan to do this on my own. After a couple minutes, he's like, if that's what you want to do, then go do it.
Welcome to Startup Now. I'm your host, Kazuya Inarida. People call me Oinari-san. And today, this is the third time of delivering the English content. And today, I'm inviting the special guest. He is the Phillip Vincent, the CEO of Plug and Play Japan. And welcome to Vincent-san.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
for having me.
Yeah, I'm very honored to invite you.
I'm very honored to be the third guest speaking English. So very early on. So happy to be here.
Yeah, and I know you speak Japanese so well, but
I do okay. My Japanese is all right, but English is maybe a little bit more comfortable than my Japanese.
Wow, thanks so much. So let's get started in English.
Sure.
Yeah, and I thought special big news that you finally launched the venture capital fund.
That's right.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I want to ask you this topic deeply later. But before that, I want to get to know about yourself. So could you introduce yourself and Plug and Play also a bit?
Yeah, happy to. So maybe I'll give the short version and then you can tell me kind of where to expand on.
Yeah.
But my name is Phillip Vincent. I'm currently the CEO of Plug and Play Japan. I'm also the managing partner of APAC, and I kind of co-lead that with my colleagues. So I oversee parts of our Asia business, but mainly focused on Japan and then also Korea. So that's my current role. And should I talk a little bit about my kind of upbringing in life as well? So sure.
Yes,
so I'm half Japanese, half American. So hence why I kind of grew up speaking both languages, Japanese and English. Consider myself kind of bilingual and then bicultural. But I was born in Silicon Valley area in California, specifically Santa Clara near San Jose. But soon after, within a year, I kind of moved over to Japan and spent most of my youth in Japan. Went to Japanese school until about the third grade or so. Then went to an international school for a couple of years. Moved to the States to go to a middle school for a couple of years. Came back to go to a different international school for 4.5 years. So I kind of grew up in kind of both a very American environment, both in the U.S. and in international school in Japan. And then also, of course, living and growing up mostly in Japan. So hence kind of my bicultural background. For university, I went to San Diego. I was at San Diego State for 4 years, and then kind of started my career in Silicon Valley kind of soon after that. And so my father's family is from kind of the Bay Area or Silicon Valley area in California. And my mom's side of the family, where I grew up mostly, is this place called Chibaken Matsudoshi. Maybe some of the Japanese.
I born in Chiba Prefecture.
Oh, really?
Yeah. About the same, Daichikawa.
Maybe not a lot to do there, but close enough to Tokyo that, I could consider it kind of greater Tokyo. But so I kind of split my time between those two areas most of my life until maybe currently when I came back to Japan 9 years ago, which I'll a little bit talk about. But started off my career out of university. I joined Shosha, a Japanese Shosha company. So a trading company, which is maybe a very unique type of company to Japan. So maybe a little bit hard to explain in English, but essentially doing a lot of importing, exporting, kind of new business development, supporting Japanese companies with their businesses abroad was my role in Silicon Valley. But also being able to help companies and new businesses, services, including startups from the US to Japan as well. So that was kind of my responsibility when I joined the company. And through that, I got to know Plug and Play. So I used to go to Plug and Play, which has this pretty massive building in a place called Sunnyvale in Silicon Valley in California, where they house, hundreds of startups and have relationships with thousands more. So as representing the Shosha, or the trading company, I used to go to Plug and Play to get introduced to startups. So that was kind of how I met the Plug and Play company. And soon after, I worked at the trading company for a few years. I had a really great time because I was in charge of so many different products and services. Throughout my 3 years there, I learned a little bit about a lot of things. And so I think that kind of helped me eventually transition my skills and capability into what I do today at Plug and Play. But somewhere along the way, I realized a lot of challenges in doing new businesses in a very traditional Japanese company. And that's maybe part of what inspired me to do what I'm doing today. And then also at the same time, Plug and Play seemed like a very unique, magical place where they were kind of facilitating innovation around the world from Silicon Valley. So that was very interesting to me as an opportunity. So I reached out to a couple of folks at Plug and Play, and they had a couple of businesses and new projects that they were launching, and that's kind of how I eventually took a job at Plug and Play. But maybe I'll pause there to see if you have any questions.
Thank you. And after joining the Plug and Play, what did you do first?
Yeah, so at Plug and Play, our business model has really shifted over the last 12 years that I've been at Plug and Play. When I joined, we had just started to launch what we call kind of vertical accelerator programs, or kind of 3-month programs in which we support startups with their growth in specific industries. So one of the first programs that we created at Plug and Play was centered around brand and retail, or kind of commerce technology. That went extremely well. When I joined, we launched what was then called IoT, or Internet of Things, maybe not as trendy as a word as it is, or as it was before. So I was part of the launching team for our IoT program and IoT business. And what we do is, along with supporting startups in their growth, part of running that accelerator programs was for our corporate partners that we work with. So, the Panasonics or the Mitsubishis, just to give a couple Japanese examples. These are the companies that we still work with today, but used to work with in terms of matching startups according to some of the challenges that they present to us. So that was much of the goal of the program itself, was kind of facilitating business opportunities between startups and corporates. So that was my initial role. We then started to launch more and more different programs around other different industries. So beyond that, I was also in charge of our mobility vertical program. So I was kind of managing both of these industries. We went into fintech, we went into healthcare, we went into food, we went into AI. Right now, we currently have about 25 different industries that we focus in around the world. And then to add on top of that, that was my core responsibility. At the same time, I was the only one at Plug and Play that spoke Japanese.
Oh, really?
So anything and everything to do with Japan was also kind of thrown at me, I guess, if you will. It was only natural for me to, whenever there was any Japanese guests, Japanese companies, Japanese delegations that would come to Plug and Play. And a lot of them were coming to Plug and Play because a lot of these companies and a lot of these people were trying to figure out kind of, what is happening in Silicon Valley. How do we take advantage of this whole startup movement? What is the latest and newest technology that is becoming a trend in Silicon Valley? So a lot of Japanese companies were going there to kind of figure out how to utilize this new wave that was happening in Silicon Valley. So
I wanted to ask you that many Japanese companies very interested in what's happening in the Silicon Valley. But on the other hand, the Silicon Valley's venture chapters didn't have any interest in Japan, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah. How about that?
Well, so yes and no. I think so. Japan, and I can get into this a little bit more, has been a little late to the game, if you will. So in terms of being able to modernize and shift into this open innovation era, or being able to kind of support the startup ecosystem very early on comparatively to other countries, is something that Japan maybe has historically lacked. And so they were a little bit behind, I think, in catching up with the world in terms of startup support and startup corporate open innovation activity and cross-border collaboration, so on and so forth. So I think at the time when I had just started a Plug and Play, you're right, in terms of interest towards the Japanese market or collaborating with Japanese companies was maybe not where it should have been, because Japan is arguably still a massive market. Japanese companies are, tend to be major global companies that should be amazing partners for startups to work for. So there was always reasons to collaborate with Japanese companies or in Japan, but because of how delayed Japan was as a market in kind of infusing startup technology, there wasn't as big of an interest as there is arguably today.
Mm-hmm. But you believe that, but maybe most of the capitalists of the Silicon Valley couldn't understand that quickly.
Yeah.
So maybe you talked a lot, and then finally they understood like this kind of that.
Japan's a huge opportunity. And, I think more and more as the year goes on, this week is Sushi Tech.
Yeah.
So I think, that kind of highlights some of the international interest that Japan finally has. It took time to get there. But, Japan has been building on some of the momentum that it has really tried to kind of push towards one of the top ecosystems in the world. I think whether it's the private sector or the public sector has kind of really tried to kind of push that agenda. So I think it's finally becoming a globally recognized innovation opportunity and a good market for both kind of capital allocators or investors, or from the startup perspective is an interesting place to look.
Finally. This should be your progress, I thought.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit about why, I moved back to Japan and why maybe we started Plug and Play Japan.
I want to ask you.
Yes. Yeah. So, as I was meeting all these Japanese stakeholders, companies from Japan, there was, again, kind of a slow realization that Japan was a little bit behind. That
a decade, maybe.
Yeah, maybe in some instances. But yeah, at least, easily 3 to 5 years behind, maybe even some instances more.
Yeah.
So I think there was a little bit of urgency in terms of, obviously I am Japanese. I did grow up in Japan. Yeah. So I do have those feelings of, if Japan continues on this path, then there's going to be some challenges that Japan will face. In terms of trying to kind of modernize their market in many ways. So as Plug and Play was globally expanding kind of into different regions, into different countries, that was part of our strategic...
How much regions? Yeah.
We're currently in about 30 plus different countries. Wow. With about 65 different offices. So we're extremely global now. Yeah. And arguably, maybe in terms of what we do, the most global company out there. But we wanted to kind of expand our footprint. Our one of our mottos and phrases has always been, innovation should be open to anyone and anywhere. So we kind of really followed that in terms of our strategy. And the more we expanded, the more opportunities that we have, the more connections that we make, the more startups that we get to know, the more insight that we get to capture out of that market. The more nodes that we create throughout the world, the more connections we can make through them. So that was kind of the concept. So as we were kind of globally expanding into other offices, we went to Singapore, we went to Germany, but Japan wasn't necessarily one of the first markets that we looked at because of how maybe it wasn't necessarily ready at the time when we were starting to expand. But it was always a goal of mine to potentially create Plug and Play in Japan because I just saw the opportunity gap that was here, is that Japan, was very early in their startup ecosystem journey, but had the potential to be one of the largest in the world. Yeah. And for Plug and Play to come here and kind of fill that gap somehow or be the missing piece to the puzzle here in Japan, then that was kind of an interesting opportunity to me.
Exactly. And on that time, maybe no players coming in Japan.
Yeah, I think there was a couple, including companies like 500 Startups and maybe a couple other that were kind of global players coming into Japan. But definitely Plug and Play was one of the earlier ones when we came almost 9 years ago.
You were also the pioneer to come into Japan.
Sure, you can say that. Yeah.
And when you started the Plug and Play Japan, how old are you?
I was 27.
Yeah, amazing. Too young, right?
Yes. So maybe a little bit about age because, I do get that question a lot is that, of course, when you think about it, and even when I think back on it, it is a relatively young age to maybe do what I was doing.
Yeah.
But when you work in Silicon Valley, when I worked at Plug and Play in Silicon Valley, when you're around so many entrepreneurs and startup founders who are in their early 20s or have started companies in their teenage years, I think the idea of age becomes to get a little bit skewed. So as in Japan, maybe, when you become 30, you become a manager. When you become 35, you become, department head. Kind of all these steps that you have to take depending on your age has a different meaning when you're in Silicon Valley. It's, in Plug and Play, late 20s was when when people were becoming managers. So I was exposed to a lot of people that were very successful early on. And so that kind of gave me the idea and the courage and the confidence that, even in my mid to late 20s, I could replicate that and I could manage things and I could start things and I could build things. So I think, being able to work in that environment in Silicon Valley kind of gives you, kind of seeds that idea of you can do a lot even though you're still young.
Yeah. So sorry, but I understood.
Yeah.
Totally. And when you started, when you launched the Plug and Play Japan, what did you start? Start?
Sure. Yeah. So I wanted to create Plug and Play Japan. It first was to kind of maybe speak to a lot of partners, speak to a lot of potential customers and clients, kind of see where the needs were. I was very fortunate. The first company that decided to kind of back and support me with my idea was Mitsubishi Bank.
Wow. How to connect it?
So we knew them in Silicon Valley. They were a partner that we worked with while we were there. So because I was able to kind of build my own network and connections with a lot of Japanese company in Silicon Valley, I was able to create a lot of partnerships with them while I was working there. And so I kind of ideated this project idea with companies like Mitsubishi Bank and many others in terms of, okay, this is my idea. I want to bring Plug and Play to Japan. What do you think? What should be the things that we focus on? And Mitsubishi Bank was kind of the first partners that was very interested and kind of told me that if I were to create something like this, that they would be potentially interested to become our first partner. So that's kind of how the initial conceptualization of Plug and Play Japan started. And kind of when I started to shift my focus to potentially kind of being able to launch this office. And then, a couple months of discussion with Mitsubishi Bank and a few others, decided to bring this idea up to our CEO, kind of gave him a presentation. He really liked, what I presented. It made sense to him. So he gave me the go-ahead to kind of start to work on that project. My initial thinking was that, I would create this, I would launch this from California and then maybe hire someone in Japan to become the CEO of Plug and Play Japan, because I loved living in California. It was very comfortable. It's very nice weather.
So you like both California and Japan?
I like both, but I was very happy working in California. But I think somewhere along the way, when I was kind of creating this project, I had this kind of urge to lead it on my own. So wanting to maybe come back to Japan and then potentially build this kind of as my own startup in many ways and kind of take on that new challenge. So I went back to the CEO. I was kind of like, hey, so I think I want to move to Japan to do this on my own. And I was kind of giving him my reasons to do so. But, after a couple minutes, he's like, if that's what you want to do, then go do it. So he gave me his blessing to kind of move to Japan. Crazy to think that he would give a 27-year-old blessing to lead a project in Japan, but he did, and very thankful for it. And that's kind of how I came to Japan to start really building the business. But with the start of having Mitsubishi Bank as our first partner, it was definitely a good start. Should I keep going?
Yeah. I want to ask one question.
Sure.
And, but I'm so interested in your story, and but I guess you felt a little bit fear or I want to ask you the why did you have the confidence to do the representative officer in Japan?
Yeah. So I think a little bit of having that Silicon Valley background and having exposure to so many successful and passionate people around me really helped my own confidence. And I think, as any entrepreneur or as anybody starting a new business, you kind of have to have that little kind of delusion of grandeur, maybe. So like, you have to be a little bit crazy. You have to be a little confident.
Yeah.
You have to have your passion. You have to be extremely motivated. You have to kind of have this mindset that, if you're going to start something new, your life's counting on it, your career is counting on it, that you will kind of do whatever it takes to kind of be successful. So you kind of prepare yourself with those types of mindset because you have seen a lot of startups and again, founders around you. And you start to kind of understand maybe which founders were more successful because of these types of personalities or attributes. And you try to copy some of that and take it kind of in your own way and then be able to kind of execute on kind of what you've been exposed to. So I think it really helped being in Silicon Valley, being exposed there, and then knowing a lot of other successful people around me. I was able to take the good things from people around me and then kind of apply that to what I was building in Japan.
Yeah, I really resonate with what you said because I did the more than 100 founders interview I did.
Yeah.
Then I strongly influenced by that founders and they strongly encouraged me to do that new business. Now I run this media as my business. So it's running business, running media as a business is so difficult because media can't create much money.
I think it's very important, to kind of surround yourself with other people that you want to learn from. People say you're a combination of the closest people around you. And if you expand that, the more people that you're exposed to, the more people that you learn from, the more mentors that you have, the more that you can pick and choose kind of various, again, attributes or personalities that kind of you want to copy and kind of take parts of them. So I think being able to do that as any, entrepreneur or successful leader, I think is kind of one of the keys to, I think, success.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you that looking back at when you started the business in Japan, you said that you collaborated with the Mitsubishi Bank and which part of the collaboration, I mean the accelerator program or the open innovation consulting, what did you do?
So kind of a little bit of everything. So, initially, their incentive, I guess, if you will, is that they wanted Plug and Play to help them, of course, kind of really energize the startup ecosystem in Japan. They wanted to kind of influence in a positive way their network and their clients, their customers with kind of innovation and insight that they thought they would gain by bringing Plug and Play to Japan. So they initially kind of really helped us build that community in Japan first, because I think with starting anything, you need to build community. You need to build a fan base, I guess, if you will, to kind of get that momentum going. So they were very essential in kind of allowing me to connect with their own network and kind of building that initial community. And some of the partners that we ended up collaborating with kind of came through them as well. So kind of setting up the first bit of the accelerator program. And then the other side of the business that I needed to start was, if the accelerator portion is kind of the software, I also wanted to create a hardware, which is the actual physical space. What made Plug and Play in Silicon Valley, I think, very successful is that it does have a massive building with hundreds of startups inside. And it kind of creates a very serendipitous kind of networking opportunity for anyone that kind of visits that space. So I wanted to take, again, a piece of that and bring it to Japan. So I ended up being able to collaborate with Tokyo Real Estate as kind of our second partner that we worked with in Japan and kind of co-created kind of like a joint venture, I guess, if you will, a Plug and Play kind of co-working space in Shibuya. So that was also kind of a very important piece to starting our business here as well.
Yeah, actually, I worked in your office, like the Plug and Play. That I took the program of the Mint, Japanese VC, that they offered me to learn that office.
Oh, cool.
So good to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I very, なんだろう。 めっちゃいい場所でした。
Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。
Thank you. And yeah, I want to know that you said Mitsubishi Bank and Tokyo Real Estate.
Tokyo Real Estate.
Tokyo Real Estate. Yeah, so sorry. And why did they interested in collaborate with you and
Sure.
And the accelerator program? Why did they need to start the accelerator program?
Yeah. So I think, it was also back in, 9 years ago when we were trying to come to Japan. I think co-working spaces were very trendy. And I think people were trying to kind of figure out, how to create communities. I think that was kind of very popular back then. So there was a ton of co-working spaces, but not a lot of companies that would help these spaces kind of create content in terms of what would kind of happen inside. So they had been wanting to, find companies that would help them kind of bridge the gap between having a physical location and then having kind of the software piece that would kind of help add value to kind of their real estate, I guess, if you will. And of course, Tokyo is a company that, manages a lot of, regional areas around Shibuya. And so they kind of wanted Shibuya to be the center of startups and the center of innovation, which arguably it is. There's the most number of startups, the most number of venture capital firms that are in Shibuyaku, kind of more than any other district in Tokyo.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I located this studio in Shibuya.
Yes, smart choice.
Thanks so much.
So, we wanted to be a part of that story. And I think, because we contemplated Plug and Play to be in other areas in Tokyo, we, looked at various other districts. But I think in terms of the Plug and Play culture, we really fit what Tokyo was trying to do in Shibuya in terms of how diverse it is, or in terms of how, Shibuya is kind of known for a city of change and the city of diversity, culture, art, kind of starting new trends. So I think kind of all of that, beyond the fact that it was already a startup hub, really resonated with what I wanted to do in Tokyo.
So the Plug and Play Japan's identity is strongly connected with this town.
I think so.
Yeah, right. And when you started the accelerator program, did you have the plan to start the venture capital fund in the future?
So maybe not necessarily a venture capital, maybe not necessarily a fund, but the investment business and venture capital business always went hand in hand with our kind of accelerator and innovation service business. So Plug and Play globally has been investing, even before Plug and Play became Plug and Play. So our founder and CEO has been investing companies since the 1990s. And kind of his investment business is what initially kind of started the whole Plug and Play idea and kind of how he created that business. So 2006 is when Plug and Play started, but we were investing kind of prior to that as well. So a lot of the businesses that we started at Plug and Play, including the accelerator program, including the corporate innovation programs, including events and venture capital businesses, what have you, is to boost our investment strategy. So when we came to Japan and kind of built this platform, built this company, it was always with the end goal of being able to grow and accelerate our investment businesses as well. But the idea was that I didn't know anything about investing in Japan. None of my team members did at the time. So we wanted to create, we knew a lot about corporate open innovation. We knew a lot about running accelerators. So we started with what we were good at. And then we kind of built out a foundation and a community of startups and corporate partners through the programs. And once we started to kind of get our feet wet a little bit, once we started to understand the ecosystem a little bit, then we felt more and more comfortable to do investment. So we didn't invest until maybe 2.5 years after establishing the company here in terms of our first investment. And then we kind of slowly started to ramp that investment up. And, when we hit around, 20 investments or so is when we kind of started to convert into a fund strategy. But the fund strategy in itself was a very new concept that was ideated in kind of our headquarters first. And we kind of decided to copy that into Japan.
So you mean you started the venture capital fund lately, but before that you've already invested some. What from where the BS or the?
That's right. Yeah. So that's right. So we were historically balance sheet investors, and that's how we did our first 2,000 investments. But in our headquarters in Silicon Valley, we wanted to kind of build on that investment strategy. We were doing a lot of early and seed stage investments. Plug and Play's check sizes were less than $100,000 US ticket size per investment. So we weren't capitalizing on a lot of the growth opportunities, a lot of the follow-on opportunities, or a lot of the pro ratas that we would get in contracts in terms of investing in these startups. So we just kind of wanted to, we didn't want to leave any opportunities on the table. We wanted to start doing larger and bigger investments, as some of them could be potentially very lucrative because we had a very substantial early stage investment strategy already. So that was the idea. We began to create funds in the US based on industry because we were very good at creating industry communities. So the very first fund that we created in the US was a commerce fund, or retail and commerce fund, because that was our very first accelerator program. We had a lot of investments in that industry.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to, financial services, supply chain, sustainability. And that was kind of our headquarters strategy in terms of creating funds. And since that started to go well, and, with the strategy of expanding on the investments overall, we decided to kind of do our Japan version. And we started this maybe conceptually a few years ago.
And it's also good to invest from balance sheet. And in these years, there are so many venture capital also in Japan. So why did you start now?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to invest. And of course, that's a very blanket statement, but I think the Japanese startup ecosystem, has already gone through several different phases while Plug and Play has been active here for the last 9 years. I think initially it was kind of very much awareness. It was understanding, the impact of startups in the general economy and in the market, to, being able to create collaborative opportunities and open innovation between corporates and startups, to finally now the, Japan understanding that a lot of the value creation comes from startup growth, and that happening not only domestically, but internationally. So I think more than ever before, in terms of number of startups, in terms of the quality of the startups, in terms of the drive of the entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, in terms of the globalization that, entrepreneurs are wanting to expand beyond Japan more than ever before, in terms of the government supporting startups more than they ever have before, international investors and allocators wanting to see what was going on in Japan. So all these factors combined, it's made it for us an easy decision to really capitalize on this moment. So we started to, of course, raise this fund, 2-3 years ago, and finally we're able to close. So we really want to, and especially with AI, obviously I can't miss that keyword. So all these factors, considered, I think it's a very exciting time and an interesting time to be able to expand on our investment strategy in Japan.
Yeah, I also strongly believe that now created much momentum in the startup ecosystem, and I believe the future startup scene in Japan. But at the same time, it's hard. I think that now is the hard time to invest to the startups because the Tosho restricted the change the policy to maintain keep the IPO.
That's right.
100億円問題. Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think about this problem?
I mean, this has always been the game of investment. There's always changes, there's always volatility, there's always uncertainty, there's always kind of shifts in the market in which people have to navigate and then be able to take advantage of those changes. 100億円問題 was set because there were too many small IPOs, I guess you would say. So I think that in itself will kind of shift entrepreneurs' mindset to potentially now focus on growth, to focus on global markets. So of course, it made IPOs a little bit harder. At the same time, I think it's shifting the mindsets of the entrepreneurs that are starting businesses and growing their businesses as well. So I think, with anything, it has its own pros and cons. But I think the momentum shift has been that, whether it's from the startup perspective or the investor perspective, we are hoping and generating opportunities where we think startups can grow much larger than they used to before. And so there's market decisions to be able to promote that in a certain way. So that shift, we think, is a very positive thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And other investor, what part or what category you were interested in to invest?
Yeah. So we are very general.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily kind of really pigeonhole ourselves into specific industries per se. But of course, AI will be infused in any business. So of course, that's something that we'll go after. Any solutions that are going after modernizing very, latent or very analog businesses in Japan. So I guess kind of, the extension of digital transformation, of course, is very interesting. Deep tech is extremely interesting to us, as we think that's a core competency of Japan. And that stems into energy or manufacturing or robotics, or of course physical AI, which is probably a combination of the AI global trend and Japanese core capability. So those are the areas that we'll look into.
Yeah, AI is so amazing. Has that amazing power, and also, but you were LP and you are strongly connected with the enterprise company, so they have a big business in many parts.
That's right.
So maybe the startups invested from your company, their founders can try to collaborate with these companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's right.
Yes. You explained a big part of our value proposition as an investor. So, we think the reasons why startups would like to have plug and play on their cap table is one reason, like you said, is because we work with so many enterprises and so many institutions, so many corporates around the world, not just in Japan. We provide the startups in our portfolio the capability to be able to partner with our corporate partners, and then also either have them as clients or collaborate in any other way. So that's one. The second one is that we are global. So if you are thinking of expanding your business beyond Japan, we do very well at being able to support you and help you with kind of that journey, whether it's, we have offices in Silicon Valley, in Singapore, in Korea, in all across Europe. So I think those two pieces tend to be kind of our biggest value proposition as an investor.
And recently, government and many VCs said the founders to go global, that they want from global. But what do you think about the Japanese founders' potential? So can they go through the global?
It's very hard.
yeah, I thought that.
Yes, yeah. I think it's very, very hard.
Yeah.
Because historically, you can argue that the Japanese culture, whether it's the conservativeness, the risk averseness, or whether how Japanese startups are very humble, all these things aren't necessarily the best attributes for what makes a founder successful. It's sometimes maybe the opposite of that. So sometimes you would think that the Japanese culture is not a great match for kind of the growth mindset startup culture. But at the same time, those are areas that make Japanese startups and founders unique as well. I think being humble and humility is still a great attribute in terms of being able to do great business. Japanese companies are extremely trustworthy and respectful. And so you can expect, the startup to be very upfront about kind of all their challenges and potential solutions. And, I think all these attributes that arguably make Japanese startups not necessarily the best fit for founders are also reasons why, whether it's corporates or investors, are very bullish about Japanese startups as well. So I think there's a lot of areas about Japanese culture that make it unique compared to all other different cultures around the world that I think Japan can take advantage of.
So yeah, you said the potential of the Japanese founders, but how do you bring them to the global? So
I think, for me, it comes back to exposure. Like I said, I feel like my mindset and my thinking changed because I was in Silicon Valley and exposed to so many different other founders. I think step one is creating the next generation of founders being exposed to international business and international founders. And so I think what Japan is doing now in terms of, let's send entrepreneurs or let's send people, let's send students abroad, learn, be exposed to international markets, be exposed to new technology, be exposed to, how international startups are pitching compared to Japanese startups. All these things kind of create a momentum for Japanese founders to be able to think a little bit outside of the box, to get outside their comfort zone a little bit, to change their thinking a little bit. So I think that has to be kind of step one, because it is hard as a domestic, Japanese startup that doesn't have a lot of international exposure to be able to kind of cross that market. But I think secondly, more and more that has been happening. So we've seen a lot of startups and a lot of founding teams be a little bit more international savvy, a little bit more diverse than they used to before. And another part of that is that we've seen a lot of international entrepreneurs, international business women and men kind of wanting to start businesses or join teams in Japan as well. So we've seen kind of more diverse teams and diverse backgrounds in terms of nationality as well. So I think all these things are kind of starting to create global first teams like we've never seen before.
Yeah, I felt so happy to hear what you said. And I want to ask you why do you like Japan so much and that you believe that Japanese startup ecosystems like that? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm Japanese, so I have to. So I'm kind of obligated to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm very bullish on the potential of what Japan has. And Japan, from time to time throughout history, has proven that any new change, Japan has eventually be able to take advantage of that. And so Japan does have a very entrepreneurial DNA dating back to what, post-war Japan has seen a lot of success because of early stage entrepreneurs that build the conglomerates that we have today. So we know Japan can do it, has the capability to do it. It just needs to kind of go through a little bit of a transformation to kind of get that thinking back. So I think, I know that there will be that transformation that will happen in the very near future. So for us to be kind of hopefully one of the centerpieces of this transformation, I think is extremely exciting.
Thank you so much. And it's about to finish time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So quick.
Yeah. But is there any message to the listeners, maybe who is the founders or the startup ecosystem players, especially in Japan?
Yeah.
Both?
Both, because you're right. We are investing outside of Japan as well. If they have some sort of, if they are rooted in Japan in some way, or if they have substantial market interest in Japan. So that's kind of within our scope as well. No, but we not only through our fund, and of course we'd love to meet startups that could match our potential investment, but we make introductions to corporates just for the purpose of synergy. We support them through various government programs for cross-border opportunities. We've opened up offices all across Japan now. So we have offices in Kyoto and Osaka, as well as this year we opened up Fukuoka and Kobe, Hyogo, and kind of we call it Tokai region in Nagoya. So we're trying to kind of access all these local ecosystems as well. So point being, I think there's many different ways for whether it's you're a startup, a university, corporate to be involved with us. So we're happy to kind of, if you're looking to innovate in any sort of way to kind of come contact us.
Your company also hiring the peoples?
Definitely are. Yes. Always hiring.
Yeah, always. Which part is most important or the
most important, I think all across the board. So we want people to come in and help with our various corporate innovation services, our accelerator programs, our investment, any collaborative opportunities in any of the local offices and regions that we're in. So kind of all across the board, maybe.
So everyone should contact Phillip San and
Yes.
collaborate with the Plug and Play Japan.
Yes, please.
Yes. And if you're interested and like this movie, please spread together on the SNS and let's please subscribe my channel. I will deliver some content like this in English content also. So I believe the Japanese startup scene and also I want to bring startup founders to the global and the global investors coming to Japan. I want to do that. So let's do it together.
I want to do that too. Let's do it together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lastly, this content is to interview Phillip San is brought by the chance by Sushi Tokyo. So I wanna gratitude to say very grateful.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Tokyo
Thank
government
you,
is
yeah.
also a big partner of us too. So thank you, Tokyo government. Thank you, Sushi
Tokyo
Tech.
government so much. Yes, and もう時間なんで終わりましょう。フィリップさん、英語でたくさん話していただいて、
はい
ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
完全に日本語の発音で、日本語で話しても多分日本の方々完全に理解できるものかなと思いますけれども、頑張ってサブタイトルも付けましたので、国籍を問わず、英語なのか日本語なのか問わずいろんな方に我々のファッションをぜひ伝えていきたいなと思いますので、
ぜひ。
皆さん安心してください。もしフィリップさん見かけても日本語で話しかけられると。
そうなんですよ。日本人なんで。
そうですよね。
日本育ちなんで。
完全にもうネイティブだと思いますんで、気軽に話していっぱいコラボレートしてですね、一緒にこのエコシステムを良くしていけたらと思っております。じゃあ、フィリップさん、今日はありがとうございました。
はい、ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございます。